Thank you so much for your presentation, Dominic. Louise has been introduced already. And I saw your message during Louise's presentation that you'd like to jump in immediately and have your presentation and sit here already. So thank you for your immediate engagement, but I thought I'd let you have your own time, your own slot, and then we bring both of you together. Thank you so much. You mentioned at the end AI. Do you see there a specific... You said no one knows where it goes along, but you must have some sentiment of the impact of AI from your perspective on Germany, US, Germany, China, Germany, Germany. Is that a topic which is still completely untouched, or do you have another forecast on this, or another sentiment, another view?
Artificial intelligence is first important because the key player in the global system and market are the Americans and some Chinese. Europe is a little bit lost between. We have some start-up, but the key question for the American government and the American companies is, with artificial intelligence, you have completely new ways to structure economic behavior, much more than ever before. And the power is still in the hand of some companies. And also the fights between the big five Americans, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, about the future. It's an ongoing important new debate in the question of balancing power between politics and economics. Because the question is how you can not control, but how you manage artificial intelligence. And who is the owner of the data behind this? And who have some copyrights about this? And this is also a big question of geopolitics and regulation of the future. It's a key element. And it's also a kind of, it's a great power game regarding the resources of economic power. Lucy mentioned before. And what I see also in Europe, the first debates is how we can regulate, how we can risk, but nobody would like to debate the chances of artificial intelligence also here in Europe. The first law against artificial intelligence was the European Parliament and the European Commission regarding as the aspect of face recognition. But that's the kind of question how you go to new ideas, new developments. And Europe has the question, we go one step forward and four back. That's Europe. And this is my biggest frustration, the transatlantic, if you take artificial intelligence. But the question of cyber security, cyber war, is regarding artificial intelligence, it's a new dimension. This doesn't mean that within the Ukraine war, like Louise mentioned, it's a kind of national traditional style of doing war. But it's a different kind of aspect for the future. And this will be, say, companies first or governments will stop it.
Yeah. Thank you. May I bring in Louise again? Louise, do you see a change of the landscape in great power competition with regards to artificial intelligence? Is artificial intelligence tilting the balance or creating a new great power competition of different players or sub-players? Any views on AI and great power competition, please?
I think with being at the frontier of artificial intelligence and many legislators trying to grapple with what does artificial intelligence mean, what can it do, so people who are non-experts trying to develop regulation about regulation and legislation and just trying to wrap their heads around the potential of this technology. That is a significant challenge because those might also be the political actors who are determining, say, diplomatic action in a great power competition. Where I see the big division is that regulations in Europe, North America, will likely be made, if they are made by a state, they will be made on the basis of certain values that we have as a society. If the regulation, if it becomes companies who end up directing the development of a regulatory framework, then probably, naturally, they will be looking for a competitive edge. Now that may or may not coincide with certain values. But clearly there could very well be a clash of values between how Europe, North America would like to see artificial intelligence used, and how its use limited in certain cases. And say China, for example, would have different values informing, different values and interests informing how they would want to be regulated. So you have two very, very different directions of travel for that technology, or actually three, if you have if you have it left much more to the private sector.
Thank you, thank you. May I open the floor to questions? Please raise your hand if you want to put a question to Dominic, or Louise is still here as well. And please introduce yourself briefly and mention your affiliation. Anyone right now has a... Yeah, sir, please. Yes, if the microphone, thank you.
A question to Mr. Meyer. Yes. When do you think that these problems with no plan and no strategy, when did this start? What do you think? I don't think that starts the last 2 years. It starts before.
It was a really important question. I think it started after the Second World War, because Germany was... I started my career in Bonn before Berlin, a nice green city next to Frankfurt in a global perspective, and the most important part of Germany was after the Second World War was to develop our own economy. This famous Wirtschaftswunder, this economic miracle. So the German concentrate on his economic dimension, and in particular we was dependent from France, Great Britain, and America, because it was still not independent. And so we try to looking after the experience also of the Nazi system on the economic dimension. And this is changing not in Bonn. We start to understand something is new with the German politics, and we are more important in the global game, not only with the checkbooks after the reunification, but also this needs time. And it's symbolic to be back in the global system was the way from Bonn, the small Korean city, to Berlin as a new capital, also for the government. And also, and then suddenly, Germany was really important not only as moderator in Europe, as a game changer in the worldwide debates. And suddenly all the people looking for Germany, economically, not only, and also politically. And you have to find our role. But we have not the tradition to be these great power personalities or countries like UK or France or America with big tradition. We have to learn this again. We can learn it, but this is an ongoing process. And at the end, Germany is an export nation. Germany future depends on to have good relationship with everybody. But I think it's over. This system is not Cold War 2.0. It's a kind of new polycentric global power game. With the Chinese, like absolutely, are extremely important in this game. But also take last point of what leadership Germany have to learn. 50% of the world population, take the BRICS, so the Brazilians, the other, India, have an other view on the Ukraine war than the transatlantic perspective. So it's not the question, is the Russians the absolute aggressor? We have a big fight the last day also in South Africa, also in Brazil with our foreign minister, because they don't think about the same like we in transatlantic. So this we have to learn and to find solutions. And at the end, war is never a solution. We have to come back to diplomatic ways. Because you mentioned it, that where is the big loser of the Ukraine war? That's Europe. All the European countries. And economy, really also Germany. We have to be really clear what we're doing and what we can do in the future. But I think this is a kind of long tradition after the Second World up to now. And to learn this new role was not so easy. It's not easy.
Thank you, Dominic. Yeah. Please, over to you, sir. Wait for the microphone, Steve, and introduce yourself briefly and your affiliation. Thank you.
So, Steve Husk, I'm an entrepreneur and investor, and I'm working with Akim, helping him develop his strategy for Cap Inside at the moment. So my question is more about opportunism. So both of you have mentioned this sort of, what would you call it, superpower crisis that's going on. Is it a reaction to the fact that the West lacks good leadership, ability to respond, not necessarily in a warlike, aggressive manner, but, so I've been involved a lot with AI over the last 10 years, for example. I would say AI is a crutch. I don't think it leads. It's a good means by which you can develop regulatory frameworks. It's not going to make policy for you. It maybe helps a student with an essay about Shakespeare or whatever, but it's not going to make policy. And I think, so my question to you is, how much of this is down to opportunism? How much is this China, Russia saying the West is weak, the West is over-liberal, it's woke, to use a term that's being bandied around an awful lot now in the UK. If I look at Johnson, his mantra appeared to be, he wants to be liked by everybody. He didn't want to upset the apple cart. And maybe good leaders do want to upset the apple cart occasionally. And is that what we lack? Is that why we're in this crisis?
Mm-hmm. Louise, would you like to go first?
Steve, I think that question opens up a really good discussion, because there's many things to pull out of that. Has the West lacked leadership? I think what we saw in that period, that post-Cold War period, is there was a certain comfort, almost complacency. You have decades of sustained economic growth, much less expenditure on defense, much less sort of obvious need for expenditure on defense. Not perfect, but fairly stable security situation. That it means that when we have more assertive countries, almost reappearing on the international stage, that it's a surprise that it comes as a surprise to the West. And I think that we've seen that in the way that certain governments and institutions have responded. Is it a lack of leadership? And I know we were talking about this a little bit last night. I think that in the way that Western political systems have evolved, where there is much more emphasis on the personality of the leader as opposed to a particularly robust or attractive set of policies, that desire to be liked, and as you say, not to upset the apple cart, but that desire to be liked in order to be re-elected, remain in power, that I think that does mean at times that certain very difficult decisions haven't been taken. And that, as Dominic's mentioned, that there is certainly a reticence about taking the leadership. We see Germany has a particular historic case for why that is, but certainly other countries not wanting to take particularly difficult steps. That's not just influenced by the leader, though. That is influenced by their domestic political climate. So the case that I'm thinking of in mind right now is the use of chemical weapons, say in 2013 in Syria, when it was indicated that it was a red line, and that red line was crossed, but there wasn't decisive action taken. The kind of action that would really stop a dictator from doing that again. That would have been domestically very, very unpopular, both in the United States and as we saw in the parliamentary vote in Britain, that was not palatable domestically in either case, which certainly influenced a leadership decision. Your point about the West being too liberal and too woke and abandoning traditional values, that is one that countries have used as, we see that certainly that kind of rhetoric in Russia, of Russia having different values or more traditional values, and the realignment with, say, orthodoxy, as a distinct, and that being the maintenance of traditional values as being a distinguishing feature, why they're different, or in some ways morally superior to the degenerate West. And I think in countries where they associate liberalization with perhaps a loss of power or destabilization, that pointing to problems that the West has encountered, and linking them to liberal social policy is another way of justifying, well, we might liberalize, but only this much.
Dominic, would you like to give your view?
Yeah, I like your answer. Coming on to what is leadership at the end, there's a big debate about what is good or bad leadership, but leadership is, you need a vision for something, you need clear goals, and a strategy to reach the goals. Also interest politics. Like the clear global player politics of America, there's a conflict America-China. And the top issue of foreign politics, of the State Department, of the whole, particularly in politics America, is take it decoupling, is the fight against China. That's absolutely clear. The center of all politics, consequently done. In Germany is our vision on leadership, green transition. To believe we can survive worldwide without fuel in 20 years. This is other kind of visions. But what leadership means is like you have the resources to fulfill your tasks, your goals, and your strategy, like economic capital, military capital. You can dream, of course, about the future of the world, but if you have not, like the Germans, you cannot defend your own country, then you have a problem. Or you are not independent in energy. This gives a clear perspective. Leadership is to be not naive. That's the point. And sometimes in European and German politics, if you mix this kind of leadership goals, decision making with your resources on the other hand, that makes a kind of dialectic. Take the German word of this. So, Leadership, we have a principle in political theory. The leadership is so good, like the whole society is, or the government is so good, like society is. So you have this leader, the majority of your country would like to have. It's really true. That is kind of principle I never forgot.
Are you happy with the answer, Steve? Just to make sure that you, or you have any follow-up question?
I certainly understand the answer. I think leadership is important. And if I were to draw an analogy to sport, which you could easily decry, but successful teams have good leaders. And leaders do not just lead by example. They have the ability to move over that line and say, we're losing, or whatever, we need to change and do something different. So for the energy situation that you were just talking about, over-reliance on cheap Russian energy was always going to end in tears. It was just a matter of when, and yet nobody did anything about it.
Yeah.
If you just park this there, thank you so much for your question. Sir, if you briefly introduce yourself and...
Frank Huttel, Finance Asset Management from Marburg. Regarding leadership, maybe another aspect, what do you think of the role of social media? As far as I think back, as social media began, Twitter and so on, leadership or politics changed. Today, every politician is, he's setting up a tweet. There's nothing in the parliament, so it changed, and you are visible 24 hours a day. It's changed the whole style of how politics is done. So I think it's not possible today to be a politician like maybe 20 or 30 years ago, like Kohl and all the others. They sat together in a room, and nothing was tweaked out or leaked. Today it's not possible, so maybe that's a reason why we have so bad leaders. What's your opinion on that?
Dominic, would you like to go first?
Social media is important in German politics. Social media is a new channel to transport informations worldwide. It changed politics, you are absolutely right. Politics is faster than ever. Decision-making is faster than ever, is more uncontrolled than ever. Because of the counter-reaction, also with artificial intelligence, it will be much more faster because you counteract. And it brings faster decision-making, increase the failure quote dramatically. And this is a development, I think, worldwide in all kinds, especially also in every kind of organized power systems worldwide. But it's only one channel. Leadership can manage this. But unfortunately, social media in every country, also in the political area, is concentrating on a small kind of group. So it's a bubble. And that makes it more dangerous than ever. We don't speak about influence worldwide, but there's a completely closed bubble. And this is a question of manipulation or of strategy in this bubble. But this is a dangerous aspect because the bubble loves the bubble and nothing out of the bubble. Because social media is also kind of instrument, unfortunately, not to be, and it's not a dialogue instrument, it's absolutely clear now. It's a kind of mobilization and campaigning instrument. But it's not dialogue, it's not debating. That's not function. It's not, and this makes also the emotional part of politics more important than ever. But once also clear, this is my momentum every time also as a president in Europe for political consulting. If we stop to have dialogue, like today with you, if we stop to have argumentation and good arguments and balancing arguments, and have only emotions, democracy is over. Liberal power sharing is over. That's why we have to be very, very careful. But the problem is social media for politics is the bubble in the bubble. Completely closed shop. And makes politics not better than 20 years before. So it's a different style, but you cannot compare it between Helmut Kohl or Scholz or Ronald Reagan's time, take it, or Lady Thatcher time. But that's the point. As a communication instrument, it's completely in the center of practical politics, daily business. Also, this gives the problems for politicians sometimes. You cannot imagine if you're a top politician like Scholz, you're on the way to the next meeting, and you go out from your car, and 100 journalists waiting for you, and you have new information about the new things, social media, and come on, and then you have to speak. You go out of the car, and they have this question. What you can say? It's so complicated also for politicians. This new kind of political style to expect answers immediately. But also in policy making, on European and German level, we cannot finish one law. In 90% of drafting laws and decision making and law making, we start the review process before we end the whole draft system. That I think is danger. The news speed.
That's everywhere. It's in software development. You're not finished, and you're beginning the next project, and immediate response. In football, game is over. You have to explain everything. It's getting speedier from day to day, and I think we have to,
Yeah, and leadership means also to can stop, to can go and have, now we can relax. But in politics, to relax.
Yeah, in society.
Louise, would you like to contribute anything from your perspective, social media and speeding things up?
Yes, so I think, building on what Dominic has said, that social media has created the narrowcast as opposed to the broadcast. So it becomes very difficult, and we certainly saw that, say, during the COVID pandemic, that when people are getting their news and their primary source of information is social media and use their social media bubble, that it can become very difficult for governments to promote a single clear message, which may be in the public interest. So the power of broadcasting has been diluted by the power of narrowcasting, where people get their news from their own bubble and they listen and believe the news that they would like to, the news and the information that they would like to believe. It's also, social media is a medium that can't be easily controlled. So this isn't. We see even in the past week with what was happening on Telegram in Russia, that it's very difficult for the state, even a quasi-authoritarian state, to respond effectively to all kinds of information that is coming out. But I think, and I mentioned it briefly in my presentation, and I think the Q&A is a really good place to develop this, is this notion, the social media creating the notion of an immediacy of response. So that waiting a day or two to hear the outcome of a decision, the outcome of a policy decision, the outcome of even a football match, that's far too long. So what it means is it generates these very quick responses that might not actually be representative of the complexity of the policy decision that has to be taken. It has to be boiled down to 140 characters, or or less, or an emoji, or an image, because social media has really made images and imagery even more powerful, which I think feeds nicely into the previous point about leadership, with some people who were very, very effective leaders in the past would simply not have their political careers take off in the social media age because they would translate very poorly in social media. Maybe they weren't photogenic or telegenic, or they didn't produce a snappy soundbite or a clever short tweet that can sort of capture the momentum of a critical mass of these bubbles.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Dominic. Any last question? I'm happy to take one last question and then we close for the coffee break. Achim, please.
Just one question to you, Dominic. We saw the change in perspective of army and what's related to the Russian aggression against Ukraine, that we have now a huge amount of money spent in the army in Germany. Do you think that something that had a bigger impact on electricity coming from outside would change our politic opinion in terms of atomic energy again?
No. Not with this government. It's crazy. We have only 3 countries in the world: Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, with this debate. The rest of the world have a completely different approach. It's only the 3 countries. You cannot explain outside these 3 countries. The people don't understand you. It's ridiculous. They're laughing about you. It's a clear answer of your question. And what we are doing also in Europe, in Germany, especially in this country, we are looking on our own country. But outside, no. That's also not so easy, that the German believes that what we're doing is a role model for the world. Outside of Germany, I think only some people think this. Sorry for this. Cut it, please.
Excellent. I'd like to bring this session to a close. I'd like to thank Dominic for his excellent presentation and taking all our questions. And thank you to Louise for staying on and being an excellent co-panelist. Please put your hands together to thank you.